to solve equations, I need to isolate the variable by doing the inverse. Remember, equations are number sentences that have an equal sign. Isolate, remember, means to put by itself. So isolate means to put by itself. Put by itself. A variable is a letter that represents a number or an unknown. It's a letter that represents an unknown. So a letter that represents can't get that other letter in there. Let me try this again. Okay, that represents an unknown. And then inverse means the opposite operation. So that would be opposite. Okay, so looking at the first problem there, 26 equals 8 plus v. We need to get that variable v by itself. It needs to be isolated. So in order to do that, we need to do the inverse operation. So if I look what is sitting next to the v, I have an 8 plus. Well, in front of the 8, there is no sign there. If there's no sign in front of a number, that simply just means that that's a positive. So it's like a positive 8. So to move that to the other side, I need to subtract 8 from this side, and whatever you do to one side, you must do to the other. So I'm going to subtract 8 on that side as well. The positive 8 and the minus 8, those cross cancel each other out, so I'm left with my variable v. Now it is isolated, it's by itself. And then 26 minus 8 is 18. So my answer is 18 equals v. On the next one, I have x minus 7 equals 13. Well, I need to isolate my variable x, so I need to do the inverse operation. So right now, what's sitting next to the x is a minus 7. So the inverse of that would be a positive or a plus 7. So I'm going to add 7 to both sides. So when I add 7 to both sides, the minus 7 and the plus 7 cross cancel each other out, and I'm left with x equals. And 13 plus 7 is 20. So x equals 20. On the next one, I have 14b equals 56. So the b is my variable. I need to isolate it by doing the inverse operation. So right now, 14 and b, whenever you see a number sitting next to a letter or the variable, that 14 is called the coefficient and that b is the variable. Well, whenever you see that, that just implies that multiplication is going to take place. There's no operation sign there, so whenever you see a number sitting next to a letter or a coefficient sitting next to a variable, that just means that it is multiplying. So we know the inverse of multiplying is dividing. So I'm going to divide both sides by 14. So I'm going to divide both sides by 14. Well, there, let me re-highlight that b. So I'm going to divide the left side by 14 and the right side by 14. Those 14s cross cancel each other out, so I am left with just the variable b. And 56 divided by 14 is 4. So b equals 4. Okay, on the next problem, we have the number for some reason didn't get put in there, so I'm going to rewrite this. So it's actually 6 equals b over 18. Okay, so that's our next problem. So I need to isolate the variable b. I need to get it by itself, so that means I need to move the 18 over to the other side. So right now b and 18 are dividing. We could think of fractions like dividing, b divided by 18. So the opposite or the inverse of dividing is multiplying. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 18. So I'm going to do times 18, remember the little dot right here also implies multiplication, it represents multiplication, and I'm going to multiply this side by 18. Whatever you do to one side, you need to do to the other. Well, this 18 over here is 18 wholes. Well, you could kind of look at that as 18 over 1. So 18 over 1, which is still 18. Well, these 18s cross cancel each other out, and then we're left with just b. Let me slide this up. Okay, so this side now is just the variable b, and then 18 times 6 is 108. So 108 equals b.